Welcome back to another episode of Podward State. I am Grace Cunningham, and joining me today we have associate producers Jordan Mansberger and Will Pegler. How are you guys?
I'm doing great, Grace. I think we've got some really cool interviews today, and then we get the opportunity here at the end to talk with Will about some sports. Will, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks again for letting me hop on to these interviews. Some cool stuff to talk about today. So another strong episode coming in.
To start off the episode, we're going to be talking to two freshmen, Shannon Smith and Krause, about their first time in Beaver Stadium as students for the BlueWhite practice this past weekend. And then we're going to dive into some Penn State sports updates with Will. So should be a good episode. Joining us now, we have two freshmen, Krause and Shannon Smith, and they're going to talk to us about their first BlueWhite experience. What's up, Connor and Shannon?
Hi, Grace.
So have either of you ever been in Beaver Stadium before this past weekend?
I went to the whiteout game last year against Michigan. When I was thinking about going to Penn State, my parents were like, we should go out for a football weekend. So that was my first experience in Beaver Stadium.
I have. I grew up with season tickets, so I've been up to a bunch of games. But it was definitely cool to get back this weekend.
I saw a bunch of pictures of a bunch of people hanging out inside the stadium. I'm just curious, maybe not as compared to your first time at Beaver Stadium or other games you've attended, but what was the energy like before the game? Were students really excited, and what was the crowds like inside?
I think people were really excited just to go and just to get back to a little bit of normal. But it definitely wasn't as crazy as it normally was. But I know when they were playing the hype video before the team came out, people were getting excited and people were doing the chants and everything. But it wasn't anything like what it normally was.
Yeah, just honestly walking up from East Hall to the stadium, hearing that music, I kind of got chills right away. Just it felt semi-normal to me, which was so cool. And we haven't had that this year. And then walking through the gate after getting our tickets scanned, I had to let out a big "We Are" and got a big response from the rest of the crowd. So definitely felt pretty cool and definitely gave optimism for the fall.
It's kind of crazy to think about. This is for you guys as a freshman class, this is your first event where you were all together. Did that feel I don't know, I know there was a couple moments where you were saying the Alma Mater and other big things. Did that feel kind of monumental at all, or did that hit you at all when you were in the stadium or even a couple hours after?
When I applied to Penn State and was thinking about coming here, I was excited for the camaraderie of everything, and I haven't really felt that yet this entire year. I know my way around campus and I know campus, but I don't have any of the same experiences as any class before me. So I think being in the stadium, I felt finally a part of something, and I felt like a Nittany Lion. I felt the Penn State pride. So I think that was my first experience with that.
Yeah, I totally agree, because usually on a typical year we get that be a part from the start event at Rec Hall during our first week, and we didn't even get that. We didn't get anything close to that. So in April, our first time seeing the Alma Mater as one unified group was definitely surreal. I thought just seeing everyone shoulder to shoulder in Beaver Stadium, thinking wow, this is the first time we've gotten that opportunity. It definitely felt pretty cool, and it was just so cool to see our class united as one, because it was funny. One of my friends said it's weird that Beaver Stadium 101 is a lot of our first in-person class. So we definitely took advantage of that.
Do you guys think you're more excited now for football games in the future now that you've been to this first practice?
I know PJ Mullen was teaching us some of the chants, and the cheerleaders and the Lionettes got to perform, and even the Blue Band got to perform. And those were the first times I got to see any of that up close. So I think that definitely got me excited just for the atmosphere of football games for next year.
In a typical year, if it were normal, coming off of a 4-5 season, the crowd may not be as hyped entering that week 1 home game as they normally would. But now, coming off a pandemic, everyone kind of will forget about that lackluster season before, and we'll all be raring to go week 1 home game against Ball State.
So do either of you have a favorite moment from the practice, either whether it be, learning the chants or the game itself? Was there anything that really stood out for you?
My favorite moment, and I actually started crying when it happened, was there was a big group of I was in the end zone opposite the student section, and Coach Franklin was running a play, and he walked towards like the field goal, and was kind of standing there like staring up at everyone, and everyone's like cheering like, Coach Franklin, like, we love you. And he put his hands like over his heart, pulled his mask down, and was like, I miss you guys. And we could hear him because I was in row 10. I could like hear him say that and him like mouthing it to everyone. I turned to my friend, and I had like tears coming down my eyes, and I was like, I can't wait for next year. I can't wait for things to like hopefully get back to normal. Like, just as much as he misses the atmosphere, and I'm sure the team misses the atmosphere, like we all miss it too. And that was definitely like my favorite moment from the game.
For me, it was definitely singing the Alma Mater afterwards. Just, it felt like we were Penn Staters, because I know for me at least, I've been kind of dreaming of being a Penn State student for as long as I can remember. And then this year, just not having those in-person experiences has definitely felt like I've missed out on a lot that my friends that are older that have came to Penn State have experienced, and also my parents. So having that chance to experience that as one group was really touching for me.
So, yeah, that's awesome. That I think Franklin and a lot of the other coaches like said in their post-game press conference was like how important it was to at least have some fans back. So that's an awesome moment. One more thing, the being in the press box, like when they did the Alma Mater and stuff, it seemed like everybody knew it pretty well. I mean, they were showing the words and stuff, like, so I think everybody got the gist of it. Did you feel like everybody was like, once the game started the practice started and things finished up, everybody was pretty well adjusted to the chants and the Alma Mater? Like everybody could handle it pretty well.
Yeah, I know like my group definitely got it. And the group next to me, they were like, we were in our pods of 3, but we were all kind of like all swaying together a little bit. And I think the people, because I know a lot of people left like halfway through or something, and I think everyone that like stayed till the end, they were all like super excited for that. And that's why they stayed till the end of the practice. So I think everyone that was like still there, they all, had it down.
Yeah, I think everybody that stayed towards the end stayed for a reason. I think people knew the Alma Mater was coming, which was pretty cool. And if people didn't know the words, they were definitely trying their best, which was cool. I know, like Shannon said in my pod, we were all singing along to the beat, but there were definitely people to the left and right of me that didn't know it as well as us, but they were trying, so we can't really fault them for that.
So that was 2 freshmen, Connor Krause and Shannon Smith, talking to us about their first BlueWhite experience. Thank you, Connor and Shannon, for coming on. It's a great conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
We are now joined by associate producer and Onward State editor Will Pegler to get an update on all things sports. Will, how are you?
How's it going, guys? Thanks again for having me on.
So starting off with football, what was your blue and white experience like since you were there last weekend?
Yeah, so it was awesome. They ended up letting media come. We were in the press box. It was weird because like it wasn't the usual blue-white experience. It was kind of like more practice than a scrimmage, but it was pretty cool. I mean, we got to be in Beaver Stadium, actually watch some football being played, and to have the band in there, to have fans in there, even though it wasn't that many, it was pretty cool to like hear some actual noise, some actual cheering. And we talked about it with Shannon and Connor too. It was just a really like refreshing experience to actually see all that going down.
So what were some of your biggest takeaways from the team during the practice? Were there any breakout players that you saw? Just like your biggest takeaways from the game?
Yeah, I think the first one would be on the defense. There's a lot of like they got a ton of transfers in the offseason, and they also recruited pretty well. And with Kalen King, he was awesome. I think a lot of people have been talking about him. He's a freshman defensive back. He had 2 interceptions. He scored the first touchdown of the game. He picked off Taquan Roberson and took it to the house. And James Franklin, literally the week before, called him like the most advanced freshman he's ever seen at Penn State. And he wasn't kidding. He was awesome. He was getting like a ton of reps with the first team. He looked really good. So he was really probably the biggest breakout star of that game on defense, or really for the whole team. But then going to offense, Sean Clifford, Taquan Roberson, and Christian Veilleux, they've been talked about a lot just because they're the only 3 quarterbacks on scholarship right now. Sean looked, pretty strong. It was hard. It's hard to completely analyze just because it was a practice. But he looked strong. He made some really nice throws. He had a deep touchdown to Brenton Strange. And it was exciting to see Taquan Roberson and Christian Veilleux get some, substantial reps, just because we haven't seen much from Taquan. We haven't seen anything from Christian Veilleux. He's an early enrollee. He's a true freshman. He just got here. So it was awesome. I mean, they both look solid, and they both look like they're getting some good experience, in practice. I think that was their 12th practice this weekend. So they're getting, some valuable time. And then one other thing that has to be mentioned, we tweeted it from sports, but Sean Clifford actually lined up under center for a play. Mike Gersich, the offensive coordinator, talked about how that might be something they'll want to mix in. He kind of teased at it. It's kind of been obviously a joke among Penn State fans for a while now, since Penn State kind of switched away from the pro style offense. But Clifford lined up under center. They ran a play action pass. He threw it out of bounds, and it didn't lead to anything good, but it was funny. The crowd, I think even the freshmen understood, like, wait, this isn't normal. So it was funny. It was a cool moment, definitely. So fun day overall, and a lot of good signs for the team.
Now that you've seen the freshman only practice, what do you expect for the senior version of the practice on Friday?
Yeah, so I think it'll be a lot of the same. I know they just updated the decision to allow all seniors to go rather than just those taking in-person classes, which I think everybody agreed that was a really weird way to do it. So they switched that, thankfully, and all seniors will be able to, whether they have in-person classes or not, they'll be able to have kind of one last day in Beaver Stadium as students, which I think is really important, and that'll be pretty cool. So it'll be awesome for them. And then for the team, I think it'll be similar. It'll be kind of just a important practice, a cool way for new players, even guys who maybe their first year was last year, to get some actual experience in Beaver Stadium with fans, with people watching, with some noise. Obviously they didn't really have any of that last year. It was pretty strange. So I think it'll be a lot of the same. That's going to be their 15th spring practice. So that'll be their last, official practice. The NCAA only allows a certain amount until summer workouts. So I think it'll be similar, just a cool moment for the seniors rather than the freshmen, and a nice way for guys to get another chance to practice in Beaver Stadium.
Okay, so moving on to men's basketball, then obviously new head coach Micah Shrewsbury starting to get his staff in place. Recently announced that he's keeping on Taylor Battle. What do you think about some other recent additions that he's made to his staff so far?
He's been awesome, man. It's been exciting. I mean, obviously with it came out that he's going to keep Taylor Battle on as an assistant, and Nick Colella, who is also a former Penn State player, he's going to stay on staff, I believe, as I don't remember his exact position, so I don't want to butcher it, but he's going to be kind of in a similar assistant role. And then he has a couple of other guys. Akeem Farrelly is one of them. Adam Fisher is going to be the assistant, or Akeem Collins, I'm sorry, is his name. And Mike Farrelly, they were signed together as assistant coaches. They're going to work under Adam Fisher, who's an associate head coach. And a lot of those guys, what a lot of people are talking about is that they're really strong recruiters, which is huge, especially right now, obviously with guys in the transfer portal, guys, obviously that's starting to change in the recent few days, but that'll be big, just getting guys to come back and even choose Penn State out of high school. But Fisher is, I think, one of the guys that stands out as associate head coach. He didn't play at Penn State, but he went here and he worked his way up to graduate assistant. And then he eventually spent 8 years at Miami, and he went from Miami to State College. So kind of a interesting transition for him. But no, I think that's it's awesome that he's building his staff so quickly, and they're going to have so much time to kind of work together in these several months before the season. And then kind of transitioning from that, like I said, they're talented recruiters, and that's kind of been proven lately. Obviously, it was known by a lot of people. It was reported so much that 6 guys entered the transfer portal right after Shrewsbury was hired. It was 6 of the guys who were really important on the team. They, among them, John Hara, Jamari Wheeler, Isaiah Brockington. So now we kind of have answers for each of those 6 guys. So Trent Buttrick, Myron Jones, and Jamari Wheeler are all officially gone from Penn State. We've learned that in the past few weeks. But also the other half of them, Penn State's getting some, really key talent returning. Today is Tuesday. I don't know exactly when day this will be out, but Tuesday, John Hara announced that he's coming back, which is awesome. I mean, obviously Penn State lacks size. That's going to be huge. I mean, he was so important this year, just eating minutes. He got so many, I think he averaged 8.8 rebounds. I mean, he's just gritty hustle player that's really important for the team. So he was the last guy to announce he's coming back. But then even before that, Seth Lundy and Isaiah Brockington. Seth Lundy kind of had his up and downs this year, but he's an awesome scorer, and he's a young guy who it's important that he's staying. He's definitely a really talented player. And then Isaiah Brockington, and he was the first one to say that he's going to stick with Shrewsbury's program. He transferred from St. Bonaventure a couple years ago, has played for the last 2 years, and has been a really important guy. I think a lot of guys say he's one of the most athletic guys on the team. great defender, good scorer, good mid-range jump shooter, another fun guy to watch. So I think people really like panicked right after Shrewsbury was hired and all those guys entered the portal. But like you said, with the coaching staff, with players starting to come back, things are really starting to take shape, and that's really exciting.
So transitioning into men's and women's soccer, where do you think they stand?
Yeah, so the men's and women's team they had pretty strong runs in their conference tournaments. The men's team had an awesome game Saturday night. They unfortunately lost to Indiana in penalties, but it was an awesome game. They tied it. Liam Butts tied it up in like the 80th minute or something like that. And it was super exciting. They hung tough with a really good Indiana team and obviously made such a deep run in the conference tournament. So tough way to lose, but that was enough to secure them a bid at the NCAA tournament down in Perry, North Carolina. They're going to play UMass in the first round, May 2nd, I believe it is. It's early May. The women's team, who was kind of they both had really strong years. The women's team was really at the top of their game all season. They actually got upset by Iowa in the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament, over at Jeffrey Field. And that was tough. I mean, they played really well. I think they more than tripled Iowa's shots on net, but Iowa's goalie played awesome. And they couldn't put together a run in the championship, but even still, they had such an awesome year. There was no question they were going to qualify for the NCAA tournament, but they actually got pretty underseeded. And Otis Lyons, one of our soccer beat writers, actually wrote an awesome article about how the women's team kind of got screwed by the NCAA selection committee. Like they put them in a really tough bracket. And considering how good of a year they had, I think, they really, besides a loss early on in the season, they really dominated in the Big Ten. So they're going to have to play against Alabama State either on April 27th or April 28th. The date of that game hasn't come out yet in the NCAA tournament. But even if they win that, they're going to have to play Vanderbilt, who's also a really, really strong team in the women's bracket. So, not going to be an easy bracket or an easy road for them to advance, but exciting for both. I can't remember a time where the men's and the women's team have both been, this dominant. So it's pretty exciting, and it's awesome. There's a lot going on at Penn State sports right now, so it's great.
That was Will Pegler talking to us about all the Penn State sports updates. Thank you, Will, for coming on.
Thanks again for having me, guys. Always a good time.
Thank you again to our guests for today, Connor and Shannon, and also to Jordan and Will for guest hosting this episode. I'm your host, Grace Cunningham, and this has been another episode of Podward State.
Podward State is an Onward State produced podcast. Onward State is an independent, student-run Penn State news site that works to generate honest conversation in the hopes of enriching the Penn State community. The show was founded by Matthew Ogden, Matthew Palizzi, and Mitchell Stewart in 2019. The show is hosted by Samuel Brungo, Matthew Palizzi, and Grace Cunningham. Executive producer Samuel Brungo. Associate producers Jordan Mansberger and Will Pegler. Editor Samuel Brungo. Podward State releases episodes weekly and features discussions about all things Penn State, including sports, news, student life, and entertainment, which will be available on Spotify.